While it's unlikely a horror movie's opening credits will steal the show in terms of scares, plenty have done an excellent job of setting the stage for what's to come, invoking dread or an off-putting tonal dissonance that intimates all is not right. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture Horror, and here are the 10 scariest horror movie opening credits. Number 10. Nope. Jordan Peele's 2022 sci-fi horror masterpiece Nope is a tour de force of tension, a riveting, introspective film that examines the relationship between art, suffering, and exploitation, as well as the craziness that is just getting on with it and amongst it all. Peele doesn't render each of these themes individually in the opening credits for Nope, which drop following a startling cold open where Otis Hayward Sr., Keith David, is killed by debris from the sky, but he does enshrine that connection between cinema and trauma by situating the camera within Jean Jacket, enveloping the lens in what we later discover are the muffled screams of the creature's victims before settling on projected footage of animal locomotion. All of this is marinated by the subtle, haunting tones of Michael Abel's score, as well as Jean Jacket's tissue rippling in the wind. On a first watch, it's unsettling, but with the reveal of what Jean Jacket actually is in mind, it's downright haunting. Number 9. The Omen, 1976. Far from being just an example of director Richard Donner's versatility, 1976's The Omen is a terrifically spooky and atmospheric effort, and probably the best of the religious horror movies that followed William Friedkin's The Exorcist in 1973. The film, which makes excellent use of Gregory Peck as an ambitious US politician unraveling in the midst of a satanic conspiracy, also boasts a peak David Warner, dearly missed after his passing in 2022, and a tremendous score from Jerry Goldsmith. The Omen does an excellent job of establishing its blend of satanic horror from the off. While the opening credits sequence isn't overly elaborate, just credits fading in against a black backdrop, the emergence of the Antichrist silhouette as Goldsmith's theme swells is itself an omen of the apocalyptic danger lying in wait, a threat Donner's film more than delivers. Number 8. Dawn of the Dead, 2004. The 2004 Dawn of the Dead's vicious post-9/11 recalibration of the zombie genre is made clear immediately. First with its 10-minute introductory sequence, and then again with its terrific opening titles, which combine amateur video footage with news reports and grimy photography set to the cataclysmic resignation of Johnny Cash's The Man Comes Around. They do a great job of making it seem as if the world really is coming to an end, while the credits themselves appear and bleed out with a crunch, as if the infection is creasing into the stock itself. Number 7. The Exorcist. When you think back on the scariest bits of The Exorcist, there's a good chance that the opening credits aren't going to register. And that makes sense, it's The Exorcist. In scares alone, it gets trumped easily by later scenes. That doesn't mean they aren't creepy though. The opening moments of William Friedkin's iconic horror picture encapsulate its exact brand of chills excellently, opening on an unassuming image of suburbia at night before cutting to a statue of the Virgin Mary, followed immediately by Jack Nietzsche's theme screeching jarringly into focus. The opening sequence of The Exorcist is one of great contrast. An ominous-looking dwelling, fenced off from the city backdrop, winds down for the night. All the while, city life continues undisturbed. A couple walk by arm in arm, and cars pass by, unaware of the ancient evil lurking right next to them. Completing the sequence are the credits themselves, blood-red lettering fading in over a pitch-black background, giving way to the blistering heat of the Iraq desert, a land steeped in history that again intimates the power and age of the evil set to come. Number 6. Cape Fear, 1991. One of the best one-for-them movies ever made, Martin Scorsese's 1991 remake of J. Lee Thompson's Cape Fear takes the terror of that film to a new layer, peeling back the curtain to reveal what Thompson's movie could only hint at. Scorsese transforms its story of the American middle class being terrorized by a low-life sicko into a morally ambiguous battle between law, justice, and vengeance, in turn examining how that sacred American middle really masks a dark interior. The opening credits of Cape Fear lend extra weight to those themes, touching on the literal danger of the film's namesake, the eponymous Cape Fear River, which of course becomes Max Cady's grave, but also the Mask of Tranquility. The waters of Cape Fear are still and serene, and yet also voidless, inky, and obscuring. Suddenly, a bird of prey appears in the water's reflection, before Bernard Herrmann's iconic theme erupts and the film's title settles. Enraged eyes dart erratically on the water's surface. A silhouette appears, before Cape Fear itself turns blood red. Cape Fear's opening was the work of the legendary Saul Bass, a frequent collaborator of Alfred Hitchcock's, who blessed us with the opening titles of works such as Psycho and North by Northwest. His iconic typography is on full display in Scorsese's film, lending an added sense of paranoia to the proceedings, perfectly encapsulating the idea of a terror unseen. Number 5. Alien. Alien's unique blend of existential terror is peerless, and it's made apparent pretty much from the off. The title sequence for Ridley Scott's sci-fi magnum opus makes clear the cold unknown of space immediately, rendering in stark clarity its immortal tagline, that in space, no one can hear you scream. Jerry Goldsmith's score almost telegraphs how unprepared the soon-to-be-revealed crew of the Nostromo are for what they're about to face. A slow, melodic composition that acts as a sort of reflection of them awakening from their slumber, all the while an unnerving set of strings and an echoey clunking fade in and out, all of it conveying one thing: you are vulnerable. We look to the stars in Alien and don't see wonder. All we get is dust and darkness. Number 4. Klute. Alan J. Pakula's Clue occupies that space between horror and thriller, and while perhaps shy of being a full-blown horror, it is thoroughly creepy. The film, which released in 1971 and earned Jane Fonda an Academy Award, is paranoia undistilled, a remarkable reflection of surveillance anxieties that lives in the space between our everyday existence. It's also one of my all-time faves, so yeah, great movie. Part of what makes Klute's paranoia so compelling is its setting and focus. Fonda's Bree lives on the top floor of a city apartment, not necessarily an urban fortress, but a home that feels secure, and Pakula immediately sets about exposing each of the ways that sacred space can be intruded upon. It could be a window, a skylight, a phone call, electronic surveillance, maybe even the fabric of the building itself hides a passage to forces unseen. Michael Small's score for Clute, possibly the scariest thing ever, by the way, binds it all together. A breathy, ethereal composition that feels like it's stalking us from outside the frame. Klute evokes powerlessness in an extremely raw way, starting with Arthur Eckstein's opening credits, which focus on the main antagonist of the film listening to one of Bree's intimate phone calls, all while Small's music creeps along. Number 3. Halloween, 1978. Halloween's opening first half is most praised for its shocking introductory scene, in which horror master John Carpenter places us in the perspective of a mass killer stalking and then murdering a woman at home alone, only to reveal that this was just a 6-year-old child the entire time. That scene of a young Michael Myers is rightly immortal. Still, it is also punctuated by one of the all-time great opening title sequences, in which Carpenter's ghostly and enduring theme plays against a black backdrop as an ominous pumpkin fades in and amber credits follow. The opening titles of Halloween are simple but extremely effective, taking the playful spookiness of the Halloween season and imbuing it with a dread that transcends campfire horror or spooky bedtime tales. Number 2. Seven. Seven puts on a masterclass when it comes to its opening credits, a patchwork yet intricate nightmare that perfectly foreshadows the torment to come. Designed by Kyle Cooper, the opening titles for Seven positions disturbing imagery next to a gloriously creepy remix of 9 Inch Nails' Closer, the industrial tones complementing the sinister, frayed nature of what we later discover is essentially John Doe's preparation montage. Cooper packs a tremendous amount of disturbing imagery into Seven's opening titles, whether it's Doe peeling the skin off his fingertips or photography of invasive medical procedures. Layered with the remix of Closer and the scrawly nature of the typography, Seven immediately imparts a sense of dread. Sinister forces working in the dark, committed fully to something disturbing. The opening titles get even creepier after the first watch as well, their abstract creepiness recontextualized by John Doe's actions later in the film. There are 2 snippets in Cooper's sequence where we can see Doe studying passages on pregnancy, a dark moment of foreshadowing that signifies his interest in Gwyneth Paltrow's Tracy. Terrifying from the off, Seven's opening credits take on a whole new layer of terror once revisited. And number 1, The Texas Chain Saw Massacre, 1974. Perhaps the greatest horror movie ever made, Tobe Hooper's transgressive 1974 classic The Texas Chain Saw Massacre is also one of the most terrifying efforts of the genre. A mostly bloodless and yet blood-curdling production, upsetting as much for its imagery as it is the spontaneous nature of its violence, which connotes the unpredictability of America's most uncertain decade. The opening titles, The Texas Chain Saw Massacre, exemplify this perfectly, starting with a news-like, almost documentarian approach that roots the story in real life. Hooper's film immediately draws up imagery of the Vietnam War and the newscasts that beam back a horror show unfurling in real time. Not to mention news reports that dwelled on the quote-unquote bizarre crimes being conducted by a new class of criminal, the serial killer. This opening crawl is effective not because it misrepresents fiction as fact, but because it intimates so many different facets of real-life horror from the zeitgeist, and a trauma that was then still unfolding. Hooper punctuates this infamous act of horror trickery with one of the most disturbing sequences in the film. A pitch-black image interrupted by guttural sounds, the earth moving, and flesh being torn. Each of these sounds is disturbing in and of themselves, but they are eclipsed by the cold electrical impulses of what is meant to be a camera's flashbulb, which illuminates glimpses of desiccated human remains until the full horror of what has been enacted comes into view. Abstract corpse art, proudly displayed against the backdrop of the baking Texan sun. The full title drop happens immediately afterwards. Audio from a radio report now much louder and relaying a story of an oil refinery explosion. Hooper and Wayne Bell's industrial score establishes the rusting, machine-like terror set to unfold, while photography of solar flares run through a red filter evokes blood coursing outwards. All of this combined makes one of the most arresting and unnerving opening credit sequences ever produced. Its news-like approach typifying the idea that the most unnerving conceit of the Texas Chain Saw Massacre isn't Leatherface or the Sawyer family, or even necessarily the awfulness that befalls Sally Hardesty and her friends. It's that messed up stuff happens all the time. It can happen to anyone, and it doesn't have to make sense. And those were what I think are the 10 scariest horror movie opening credits ever. I love looking at opening titles, so if you have any favorites, please do share them down below, and tell me why you like them so much. After that, please be sure to drop the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more so you don't miss another upload. Either way, I've been Ewan, this has been What Culture Horror, and I'll hopefully catch you next time. Bye!